Okay. And last sessions to review the question and case study. Now we continue to the next presentation, lecture 4, law of contract. For this presentation, we study the basic principle and the basic aspect of the law of the contract. We try to review the most important issues of the contract concerning how can you establish the contract, modify the contract, terminate the contract. How about the articles of the contract? How can you understand for the time of conclusion of the contract and the ties of the contract? So the contract is one of the most important issues for the business law. Without contract, no business law. The law contract is very important to define how can you share your promise, your acceptance, your agreement. The law contract is very important because this one defines your right and obligations. Your right and obligations. Via the law of contract, we understand the parties of the contract. It means that we understand who involved or who entered into the contract, who signed contract, who modify contract, and who terminate contract. So the contract is very important for the business law. Okay. We start by trying to explain what is a contract. So we can base many dictionary to explain, or many writings for what is a contract. So in order to understand a very popular definition is under the Black Law Dictionary. The contract is agreement between two or more persons. And it's very important by saying that it creates obligation. It creates obligation. So it's very important to keep in mind that it creates an obligation. The obligation is very important to understand what is a contract. Okay. So how many people involved to the contract? The answer is two or more persons. And what kind of issues created under the contract is obligation. Obligation. And the contract refers to a legal relationship concerning to the right and promises. And it makes a legal duty. It's legal duty. Legal duty. And in the case of some of the party or both parties carries activity, breach the duty of the contract, in this case the party has the right under the law to seek a remedy. To seek a remedy. The remedy refers to the kind of actions in which you can seek a restoration. You can ask the law or legal authority to protect your right. To protect your right. This one refers to remedy. So the contract is very important for the business law, very important for the business activity, and very important to define the right obligation of the party. So it should give by that we have at least 2%, and 2% or more person agree to create a legal duty and a legal obligation. By drafting a contract and entering the contract, we agree a legal relationship between them. So that's why a right obligation constituting an agreement. It's very important to keep in mind that it's constituting an agreement between the parties. So the contract is very important because it meets the right obligation. It protects the right obligation of the party. It protects and secures the right to seek remedy, to request a legal authority to protect the right. So that's why the contract is very, very important for the business activity. But the question is, why a party enter into the contract? We have many reasons to explain why a parties of the contract enter into the agreement. One person enters the contract because maybe they want to sign a contract, maybe they want to seek agreement, maybe they want to find profit, maybe they want to create the obligation, the legal authority for the party. In terms of the business activity, okay, maybe you find education and research, maybe you want to sell or buy goods, maybe you want to supply services, or maybe you want to recruit employee. So you have many reasons. You want to enter the contract, you want to sign agreement for training, for education, for researches. You want to sign contract for selling the goods or supplying services. Okay, or if you are employer, you are director, maybe you sign a contract to recruit employee. So we have many reasons to enter the contract, and if you want to enter the contract, you share your promises to other party and say that or explain that you want to enter. So depend to the reasons, depend to your intention. You want to enter the contract, you sign a different kind of contract. So the contract for research, the contract for education, the sale of good contract, the services contract, or the employment contract. So we have many kind of contract. You can find more example on the contract, like constructions, like tourists, like transportation. Okay, it's some kind of services contract, or the combination between a safe good contract or services contract. By answering the question why you enter the contract, you can explain the reasons, the way you can enter, and the kind of the contract you can agree. Maybe education contract, maybe research contract, maybe sale of good contract, maybe service contract, or employment contract. We have many kind of contract you want to enter. And before you enter the contract, you try to imagine. How about the time for conclusion? When you enter into the contract, time for conclusion. Okay, how about the article of the contract? What kind of article? How many article? Okay, how can you define article? How about the content of the article? Okay, you should imagine before you enter the contract. Or even the title of the contract. Okay, apart from the article, apart from modification, termination, you try to imagine the title of the contract. It's very important. Title. So we have many reasons why the party entered the contract, and depends to the intention and the mission that you enter the contract. You can define the title and the kind of the contract. Okay, let me repeat. Depend on the intention or mission you enter the contract. Okay, you can define the type of the contract you want to enter. So, if you want to understand the legal aspect of the contract, we have many parts to cover. Okay, the first question, in terms of the basics for the contract, you should understand why you enter. Why you enter. As I mentioned before, we should understand many reasons you want to enter. For education, for sale of goods, for services, or employment. Okay, the first question is why you enter. Okay, and after you define it, why you enter, the next step for understand the law governs the contract is you should understand the sources of the law of the contract law. The sources of the contract law. It's very important to understand what kind of law governs to your contract. It's very important. The sources of the contract law may be the same in understanding for the legal system, may be the same to the contract, to the sources of the law. It may be statutory law, case law, customary law, okay, or maybe more, like Lex Mercantoria. We have many kind of contract. Even this one may be concerning to the hard law or soft law, may be concerning to business norms. Business norms. You remember, standard form contract is a kind of business norms. So understand the sources of the contract law is very important because you understand the article, understand the time of conclusion of the contract, understand the article the law require you to sign, understand for how can you terminate contract, how can you modify contract, how can you sign contract, how can you define your right obligation. So the sources of the contract law is very important. But you should understand how many kind of laws apply, how many legal norms document apply. It's very important to define. So that's why you should understand the general law applied to the contract or specific law applied to the contract and the combination of them. So that's why the sources of law is made the most important concerning to the law of the contract. You should understand the sources of law first, and after defined the law apply. We try to define the article, the type of contract, the element of the contract, and the way to restore the contract with the remedy or remedy. Okay, so the first is very important is how can you understand and define the sources of the contract law. Okay, if you back to the first presentation, it's civil law system. Okay, the sources of the law under the civil law system refer to many things: statutory law, customary law, case law, or even general principle of the law. Okay, we have many type of laws. So the sources of the contract law may refer all of them: statutory law like civil code, customary law, okay, like uh, local custom, case law is referred to the decision of the court, or general principle of the law. Okay, it's not statutory law, not case law, not customary law. It's referred to the way you very difficult to find the exact article to apply. In this case, maybe you can base on the custom, you can base on usage, you can base on uh, the common understanding as a community to define what kind of general principle of the law to apply. So the sources of the contract law is very important. The next is the type laws. We shall discuss this one in detail later. But at first, you should imagine the type contract. The type contract, the law may be divided many type contract. It depends to the legal system. It depends to the domestic law. Domestic law. Maybe you can define for if you look at to how can enforce the contract, it refers to enforceable contract. Enforceable contract. If you focus on the how many parties involved, it refers to multiple party contract. Multiple party contract. If you look at the validity of the contract, it refers to legal contract or illegal contract. Okay. If you look at the kind of services to supply, it may be referred to transportation contract, insurance contract, banking contract, in case of you focus on the time for the long term for the time of the contract. It may be the long term contract, medium term contract, or short term contract. It depends. So it depends what? It depends. The first is how can you why you enter the contract. By defining why you enter the contract, maybe you can define type contract you involve. For example, for the buy or sell goods, it refers to the sale of good contract. If you refer to buy or to supply services, like transportation, it refers to service contract. Or employment contract, it refers to how can you sign contract, become to employee, some of the right obligation as employee, and the right to request to be protected as employee. So this one refer to employment law. Okay, so that's why the sources of the law for each one in this case refer to the law governing the sale of good contract. For the services, it refers the law to the to the service contract. For employment contract, it's the employment law for employment contract. So for the first, it may be referred to the civil code and commercial law. But for the second, maybe it refers to labor code, for example. The labor code refers to employment law. Okay. So the next issue is very important to understand is the type of contract. You should imagine a type of contract. After you study, understand the sources of the contract law, the next step you should understand the type contract. Because the type contract will define the type of your right obligation. Okay. Any question for the sources of contract law and type contract? Or the reason you enter the contract? Any question? Any question?
What is the soft law? I don't look. Early on, you mentioned that. Uh, thầy có thể nhắc lại về cái soft law được không ạ? Em hơi quên.
Okay, the soft law refers to we can you can divide the hard law and soft law. The hard law may refer to the law set by the government, set by the government, like statutory law. It's set by National Assembly or Congress, or some kind of regulation. The regulation set by government. So the law set by government, by National Assembly or by state, okay, may be referred to hard law. Or the treaty, for example, the treaty is agreed between two or more nations, may be referred to hard law. But in some cases, in order to make the business activity more flexible, it makes more flexible. The business community maybe agree the way to make the contract more flexible, more easier. Okay, they can agree the principle outside the government law. It is a law set by business community, not by government. But because this one is very important and will be accepted by the business community, it becomes the law of the business community, but not the law set by state. It is soft law.
And I think just if someone break the soft law, but not the hard laws, and who can handle this case, and em thấy là kiểu như là ai, nếu mà một doanh nghiệp mà nó vi phạm soft law nhưng mà nó không vi phạm hard law ấy, thì ai sẽ đứng ra là giải quyết, ai sẽ đứng ra là đối thủ và
Okay. In the case of maybe the contract, you agree that you have many ways you can agree the law applying the contract or the company law. You should understand and should agree the law applies the contract. But suppose that you forgot. You forgot to agree what kind of law applies the contract, or you agree apply to CISG, for example, or other treaty apply the contract. But in fact, this one is not enough. So the answer is, in the case you want to bring it to arbitration, for example, the arbitrator or the group of arbitrator must define the law applied. And in this case, the law is not hard law. The law refers to how the business community can agree to define. The hard law refers to the law set by the government. But suppose that the party of the contract agree other. They don't agree to the government law. They agree to the third law. Or even they agree to the customary, they agree to the usage, they agree to general principle of law, like Lex Mercantoria. Okay, the power of arbitration must define which law apply. So the law in this case is not only refer to the government law, it also refer to the law set by business community. Like standard form contract, suppose that the professional association, set some kind of standard form contract, and this one accepted by the whole of the business community. So in this case, this kind of contract become the soft law. Or do no Incoterms, international commercial terms. If accepted by the party under the contract, it becomes the law. So the law in this case is a soft law because it's not set by the state, it agreed by the party and accepted by the business community. Okay, but you must define very clearly that this one is on its encoder, not refer to FOB or CIF, because the national law or domestic law may be defined as the CIF or FOB. You must define that the FOB or the CIF come from Incoterms of ICC, because the Incoterm of ICC is accepted by the business community. Okay, it differ from the law say that FOB or CIF under the national law. For example, some country like US talk about the CIF or FOB. But CIF FOB in this case refer to national law. It differs from the Incoterms also refer to the CIF or FOB. In this case, we said Incoterm of ICC. It's version 2000 or version 2010. And in this case, this is the version or this kind of usage accepted by the business community. So in the case of accepted by business community, it becomes to soft law. All right. Maybe the soft law maybe refer to it tend to refer to international contract rather than the domestic contract. The domestic contract may refer to domestic law, but international contract it refer to many things. It may be to the treaty, it may be to the national law, it may be referred to international law, it may be referred to treaty, or maybe refer more, like custom or like usage. So in terms of international contract, many kinds of the governing law can apply. It may refer to hard law, like the government law or treaty. It may be referred to the law accepted by the business community, like Incoterm or usage, like PICC. Principle of international contract, commercial contract, is not referred to the usage. It's soft law. The soft law is not law accepted by the government. The soft law accepted by business community. And after accepted by the business community, maybe the court or arbitration can accept. And if the court arbitration accept, this one become to the law. It is the soft law. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So that's why the sources of the contract law refer to both hard law and soft law, refer to the law of government, and refer to the principle or rules accepted by the business community. You should imagine that it's accepted by business community, not by person, not by organization, not by many organizations. It's accepted by community. And in this case, it's become the principle of the community. Okay. Any more questions?
So if in a contract the parties decide on using a soft law, would and if they go to court or arbitrator, will that will the judge or the arbitrator solve the case by using the soft law?
maybe they can use soft law. In terms of soft law, it may be tend to arbitration rather than to the court, because the court tend to apply the domestic law. With arbitration for international contract, arbitration may tend to apply many kinds of the sources of the contract law. It may be it both refer to the hard law and soft law. But the hard law, they apply the hard law first, and in the case of the hard law, is not enough to fill in the gap. Not enough to fill in the gap. They apply soft law if the soft law accepted by the party or accepted by the business community, or both. What does it mean? It means that the soft law, in most cases, accepted by the article of the contract. Like under the contract, they said we agree to apply Incoterms to cover to the transportation between the party. So in this case, the Incoterms become to the law of the contract because the Incoterm accepted the party and Incoterm accepted by the business community. So the Incoterm become to the party, to become to the law of the party. But of course, the court arbitration apply the hard law first. In terms of hard law, okay, they apply the statutory law first. And after apply the statutory law, maybe you can say can apply customary law or case law or general principle of law. But the first is statutory law.
And that is only for the judge, the litigation, right? And the arbitration will just go with the soft law, right? Like a soft law.
It depends situation. It depends the situation. You should keep in mind that the litigation differ from the arbitration. Maybe arbitration have more rights, more power to decide which law apply, because the arbitration is agreement between the party. In terms of litigation, okay, for the litigation, even they don't want to enter. The law says that if the dispute happen, one of the party has the right to bring it to the litigation. So the procedural law says that you have the right to ask the court to deal with the dispute and protect your right. In terms of arbitration, the arbitration is agreed. Yes, any question?
Yeah, okay.
In terms of arbitration, the arbitration is agreement between the party. That's why bring it to arbitration or not depends to agreement. If you disagree, you bring it to arbitration. No agreement for arbitration. So you must agree. Maybe you can agree by the article under the contract, or you can agree by separate arbitration agreement. Okay, you can agree separate agreement, or you can agree the article of the contract to say or accepted to deal with the dispute by arbitration. So if you agree to decide it by arbitration, the arbitration have many rights to decide which law apply, and it differs from the litigation. For litigation, only domestic law apply. So if domestic law accept to apply hard law, the hard law apply. If the domestic law accepted to apply soft law, the soft law apply. Okay, the arbitration can apply anything if the party agree. If the party agree by the contract, they can apply hard law or soft law. They can apply governing law, government law, or apply customary law, or usage, or general principle of law, or treaty, or international law or anything if they want. It's different with the litigation and arbitration. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
So the sources of the contract law depends to the type of contract. The type of contract will define the sources of the contract law. For example, the employment contract refer to employment law. The service contract refer to the law on services. The sale of good contract refer to the law governing the sale of good contract. The valid contract refer to the law governing to validity of the contract. The construction contract refer to construction law. The transportation contract refer to transportation law. So the type contract will define the sources of the contract law. Okay, and after you understand the type contract, you should understand the detail of the contract, like elements of the contract. If the type contract refer to the kind of contract you enter, the elements of the contract refer to the article, detailed article, and detailed stages of the contract. It means that how many stages of the contract if you are the party involved. The first stage of the contract refer to the formation. The formation refer to how can you establish the contract, or you must define the time for conclusion. Define the time for conclusion of the contract. After you define the time for conclusion, you owe the obligation to follow. And during you follow to the contract, you have many rights under the contract, and one of them is the right to modify. But the modification of the contract must agree by both parties. If only one of the party agree to change, no changing for the contract, no modification. So the modification must agree by all parties. Or termination, in the case of something wrong happen, or the time is come to an end. Okay, the contract go to an end. This refer to termination of the contract. So the termination refer to the end of the contract. No more right, no more obligation, and both parties go to liquidation of the contract. The elements contract is not only refer to the status of the contract, it also refer to article. So you must understand the type article. It depends to a type contract. The type contract depends to the sources of the contract law. But the elements of the contract depends to a type contract. For example, the article of the service contract differ from those of the sale of good contract. The service contract differ from employment contract. So it depends on the type contract, you decided to the type articles. So the law decided many different requirements to the article of the contract. It may be for compulsory article or non-compulsory article. If the law requires that this article is compulsory, you must have this article. Okay. And after you understand the sources of the contract law, define that the law apply, define that the type contract, define that the article of the contract, you carry. But maybe something wrong happened. You should give by that before you sign contract. You should imagine what kind of wrongs maybe happen. So you should understand and define the article to deal with the wrong of the contract. We have many kinds of articles refer to this one, like the remedy for breach of contract, the article to deal with the dispute, the article to agree to accept to go to arbitration, for example. So we have many kinds of articles to deal with the breach of contract. So understand contract means at least you must understand many kinds of issues concerning this contract. The first is how many reasons? What kind of reasons? Why you enter the contract? Is the first question. So this question is very important because they will define the type contract, they will define the article of the contract, and they will define the what kind of law apply. What kind of law apply? Okay, after you answer why you enter, you must understand what kind of law apply or the sources of the contract law. After you define the sources of the contract law, you should understand what kind of contract you want to sign. What kind of contract you want to sign. And after defining what kind of contract you want to find, you define that the next step is what kind of article you want to put into the contract. And after you imagine the kind of article, you should imagine the article for the deal with dispute. If you want to deal dispute, okay, you want to deal with dispute, you must imagine the way you want to deal with dispute and what kind of jurisdiction you want to bring. Okay, this one is only basics, only basic for the contract. You can find more. It's only basics for the contract because the contract is very complicated. For example, for international contract, you should imagine the type of international contract, the type of law apply, the type of parties involved. Maybe investor, maybe contractor, maybe transporter, maybe insurer, maybe banker, maybe more. So it depends the type of business activity involved. You define the type of contract, you define the law apply, and the more business involved, the more party involved, the more complicated to the contract. It means that the multiple party, it makes the contract is more complicated for only two parties. So the multiple contract is more complicated for the bilateral contract, more complicated to the party involved, more complicated for modification, more complicated for the article, more complicated for termination. Okay, the more person involved, the more complicated. Okay, any question? Any question? No question? Okay, any question?
No.
Okay. We just said that we have many law apply. It may be referred to domestic contract, or international contract. For domestic contract, it refers to the kind of sources of law applied. And for the Vietnamese law, the most important law applied to the contract is the Vietnamese Civil Code. The Vietnamese Civil Code. Okay. The difference between the Vietnamese definition. The Vietnamese definition. So the contract under the Black Law Dictionary is okay. Now look at this one. Under the Black Law Dictionary is two or more persons. Okay. Under Vietnamese law, between the parties. Between the parties. Under the Black Law Dictionary, it's referred to obligation. The obligation. But under Vietnamese law, it refers to obligations. Under the Black Law Dictionary, it refers to the right to seek remedy. To seek remedy. But under Vietnamese law, we said establish, change, or terminate. Establish, change, or terminate. What does it mean? It means that in terms of the US law, for example, it focuses to explain person. Okay, it focuses to explain how can you create obligation. Okay, which way to make or constituting agreement, and explain the right to seek a remedy. The right to seek remedy. Two or more persons mean we have bilateral contract or bilateral agreement or multilateral agreement. Vietnamese law not to distinguish between the bilateral contract or multilateral contract. We say that parties we not focus on how can you still constitute agreement only. We share for establish, change, or terminate. So the Vietnamese law explain how can establish, explain how can you change, and explain how can you terminate the contract. So we spend many articles for establishing the contract, for changing contract, and for terminating the contract. Okay, establishment, modification, and termination of the contract. It differs from US law. Okay, they explain obligation. They explain promise. They explain how can you constitute it, and they explain a remedy. What kind of remedy? How can you seek remedy? Which person can deal with and protect, right, in the case of the remedy happen. So we have many definitions for what is a contract. It depends to legal system and depends to the definition. Okay, the legal system says that we have many ways to explain what is a contract, many ways to define which article refer to the contract, what kind of the article, what kind of the contract. Okay, how can you deal with the contract, how many issues you put into the contract law. But the Vietnamese law is party, is agreement, it is establishment, it is modification, it is termination. Okay, for the US law, it is person, is obligation, is promises, is constituting, and a remedy. remedy. So depend the definition. Okay, the legal system will decide which law apply, how many part for the contract law, what kind is the article for the contract, what kind is the article. Okay, the Vietnamese law refer to the termination, the US law refer to the remedy. Okay, the Vietnamese law refer to how can you establish, the US law refer to promise constituting agreement. Okay, the Vietnamese law says that the civil contract, the US refer to agreement. Okay, the keyword based on civil. Okay, so you can find many different between the legal system in terms of the contract, and based on how can you imagine what is the contract by definition, you can agreement the difference between the legal system in terms of the definition of the contract. Okay, this one is definition under the Vietnamese law, under the Vietnamese Civil Code. So depend to the party. Okay, if the party refer to the service, it is a transporter. Okay, if party is transporter, it refer to transportation. If the party is refer to insurer, it refer to insurance contract. If the party refer to banker and banking, it refer to banking contract. Okay, so the kind of the party refer to the kind of contract, and refer to the kind of obligation, refer to the kind of established, change, and terminate the contract. Different type of contract, different type of establishment, different type of modification, different type of termination, different type of the party refer different type of obligation. Okay. So understand the party, understand the obligation, understand the establishment. How can you conclude the contract? How can you terminate the contract? How can you modify the contract? Is very important. It is the keyword to understand the Vietnamese law contract. Okay. Okay. Any question? Any question?
Just referring to the parties in the contract as party and as person make a difference.
In fact, okay. In fact, the parties under Vietnamese law may be referred to individual and legal entity. Of course, it may be referred to household, for example. But in most cases, the party refer to individual and legal entity. But the person under the US law refer to many things. Maybe individual, maybe a partnership, maybe a corporation, maybe NNC, maybe joint venture. Okay, and maybe more. The person can understand in broader sense compared to the Vietnamese law. Under Vietnamese law, the party, in most cases, the party refer to individual and legal entity. But the US law defines this one in more detail. Many kind of person. If you want to understand more on who is person, okay, look at to US law for explaining who is person. I don't remember I explained you before or not. Let me check. Okay, this one I remember. I explained you before. Okay, look at this one. Under US law, the person refer to individual, partnership, corporation, LLC, joint venture, trust, any other. Under Vietnamese law, maybe only refer to individual and legal entity. Okay. So the person refer to both natural person and legal person. Legal person. Because the legal person under Vietnamese law differ from US law. Differ from US law. Under Vietnamese law, the legal entity, the entity must adapt many criteria to become the legal entity. In fact, it's a 4 criteria to become the legal entity. It differs from US law. The US law and many other legal systems only distinguish between the natural person and legal person. The natural person and legal person. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So to be distinguished between the Vietnamese code and Vietnamese contract and US contract is very difficult to define. But maybe you can imagine different concerning to parties, establishment, termination, modification, and obligation. For US, how could you create obligation? Promises. And in terms of promises, maybe you refer to how can you enforce or non-enforce. So that's why you have both enforcement and non-enforcement agreement under US law. That it's not under the Vietnamese law. Because they focus on the promises. That's why they try to understand how can you enforce promises. How can you enforce promises? That's why you have both enforcement contract and non-enforcement contract. It's different compared to Vietnamese law. Okay. And under Vietnamese law, they also define some key issues on how can you explain and define the type of the civil contract. We have bilateral, unilateral, principal, auxiliary, benefit to a third party, and conditional. Okay. Okay, let me repeat. The Vietnamese law define for bilateral, unilateral, principal, auxiliary, benefit for third party, and conditional. Okay, bilateral mean one party to other. Unilateral mean only one. Principal mean not depend to auxiliary contract. The only auxiliary contract depends on principal contract. The contract for third party means a third party enjoy. A third party enjoy. And the conditional contract means this contract depends on. Depends on what? Depends on a certain event. In the case of the certain event change, modify, or terminate, the conditional contract, the contract change or modify or terminate. Okay, and in the case of this situation happen, the contract happen, the contract change. The bilateral contract refer to at least two persons. Unilateral contract we refer to the action decided by the one party. Principal contract is a separate contract, it's not dependent on auxiliary. The auxiliary contract is not separate contract, it's a contract depends on principal. The contract for the benefit of third parties means this party is not party, it's not subject to contract. Okay, suppose that the parent signed the insurance contract to the insurance company. So in this case, the parent and the company are the subject of the contract, but his child, but he or she child or children are not the party of the contract. They are third party. The parent sign agree to the insurance contract that they accept to make a benefit to the third party, and in this case, his children become to the beneficiary. They receive or enjoy the benefit from the third party, from the party of the contract. So the Vietnamese law defines many types of the civil contract, and the type of civil contract depends on the situation happen. Okay, it depends to the contract. If depends to the contract, it's auxiliary. It not depend its principle. If only one party involved, it is unilateral. If at least two parties involved, it's a bilateral. If a third party receive a benefit, it's a contract for the benefit for the third party. And in the case of if special event happen, it change to the contract, it's conditional contract. Okay. So if you it based on the Vietnamese law, if you based on other legal system, you can find more type of article at the contract, like enforceable, unenforceable contract, enforceable contract, valid contract, invalid contract, or maybe more. Okay, it depends on the way you explain that what is the contract, the type of the contract, the obligation of the contract, and the party involved. Okay, depends on the party involved, depends on the article. Okay, depends to who signed the contract. You decide what kind of the contract. So that's why I said the more party, the more complicated. The more complicated. If only two party, it may be not complicated compared to multiple party. If the contract refers to a third party, it's more complicated because it must deal with the benefit for third party. It's not only for the party, not only for the parent, not only for the insurance company. You also deal with for a third party. Okay. In the case of you, based on the Vietnamese law to understand US, okay, the US law refers to two or more person. Two more person. Two more person means it refers to bilateral or multilateral contract. Okay, In the case of it refers to promises. It refers to promises. It refers to before contract, during contract, and after contract. And that's why you must think with something happened before the contract. It's not only during the contract. Okay. So in terms of a seek remedy, if you can to seek remedy, it refers to enforceable. So that's why this law refers to both enforceable and non-enforceable contract. Okay. So the type of definition, the type of article, the type of way to explain will decide the type of contract. It depends the legal system. Okay. Okay. Any question before I have a short break? Any question? Any question?
I think no.
Okay, if you have no question, we have 10 minutes short break. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, can you continue? Already?
Yes.
Okay, now we start with the sunset of the contract law. The sunset of the contract law divided into domestic and international. Domestic and international. We start with domestic contract law first. We have many examples for the domestic contract law. We start with the legal civil system first. The legal civil system first. Indonesian Civil Code, French Civil Code, French Commercial Code, Vietnamese Civil Code, and Vietnamese Commercial Law. Of course, you can find more. For the legal system, for the civil legal system, you can find the example for domestic contract under the Civil Code, Louisiana Civil Code, Chile Civil Code, Quebec Civil Code. Okay, we have many examples for the code, for the civil code, for domestic contract. Of course, the civil code or the Vietnamese commercial law never enough to cover for the contract law of the contract law. Never enough to cover. For example, for insurance contract, you apply for the law in business insurance. For the banking contract, you apply for the law on constitution. For transportation, you apply for the law, for the separate law on transportation, like maritime code. The maritime code apply for the contract and many kind of activity for the shipping activity. We have many forms of the shipping activity. So we have many separate law for domestic contract. For interstate, they also have the code, Uniform Commercial Code, but the code under the US law differs those of the civil code under domestic, under civil legal system. The code under US refer to both collection and both collections and identification and codification. The codification only refer to domestic civil law system, but interstate code refer to both collection and codification. And you should keep in mind that every country have domestic law, even this one belong to civil, common, or Islamic law. Okay, they have a separate law. And that's why the civil code or commercial law is only example. There's a law to cover contract. You can find more. For construction contract, construction law, for example. So you have many laws for the contract. Of course, for interstate, it's not only for the commercial code. You can find for customary law or case law. And the case law is very important for interstate. In Vietnam, we have also the case law, but case law is not important compared to statutory law in Vietnam. Okay. The next is international contract. The international contract refer to the contract signed between at least two parties in different country, like the enterprise in Vietnam and US. So the international contract may be more complicated compared to domestic contract, at least concerning to the sources of the contract law. In order to cover international contract, many countries accept to sign international treaty, and one of the most important treaty concerning the international contract is CISG. CISG stands for Convention for the Contract for International Sale of Goods. You should keep in mind that this one only for the sale of goods only. What does it mean? It means that the CISG only applies for the sale of goods contract, not for the service contract. For example, for insurance, for transportation, for banking, for any other kind of contract, it's not covered by CISG. And the CISG is also not covered for any issues of the contract. For example, the sale of goods convention refers to how can you sign contract, how can you change contract, how can you terminate contract. But many issues concerning to the contract is not covered by CISG. For example, transfer of ownership, deal with dispute, transfer ownership, except that the law apply. Maybe it's not covered by CISG. So that's why many parties under the contract may agree to apply both convention and domestic law, or even customary law. And that's why the next issue concerning some party, okay, maybe accepted some aspect of domestic law combined with CISG. Okay. For example, we agree to accept that our contract to cover by CISG. In case of CISG is not covered, is not filling up by CISG, we agree to follow to any domestic law, or French domestic law, or Germany law, or Vietnamese law. Okay, to cover the contract. And maybe some other aspect of the contract may be covered by shop law. For example, for transportation of the sale of goods, we agree to apply Incoterms version 2010 of the ICC. Version 2010 of the ICC. So the International Contract Convention is never enough to cover contract, international contract. We should combine with other. So the law apply to international contract is not only treaty. Okay, it should combine to other, like domestic, like customary law, like case law, like general principle of law, or maybe more. Okay, how can you find the Convention on Contract for the International Sale of Goods in website? How can you find it? Mr. Vũ Nhật Quang. How can you find it? I want to find CISG on website. How can I find it? Where I can find it? Okay, Mr. Vũ Nhật Quang. Mr. Vũ Nhật Quang, where are you? Mr. Vũ Nhật Quang, where are you? Mr. Vũ Nhật Quang. Okay, how can I find CSG on website? Mr. Quang, where are you? Lê Thị Thanh Nga. Lê Thị Thanh Nga, where can I find CSG on website?
Can I ask a question? You asked that I can find CISG on what website, right?
Okay, where you can find it on website?
Just give me a few seconds. I will find it.
No, you have only 1 second. Okay. Nguyễn Anh Quang, where I can find it?
Yep. I think you can find those in one of the website that you gave us in the slide.
Okay, thanks. Nguyễn Đình Việt, where I can find French law on website? French law on website.
French, right? French, not CISG.
Okay, my question is focused on the French law. Where can I find it? Website? Okay, now we back to number 3. Go to number 3 slide. Number 3 slide. Okay. Okay. Now, which website you can find CISG? Which website you can find CISG?
It's a third website. I can find the CISG law in the third website and train law in the second from below up to above.
Okay, but not enough. For the CISG, you can find both unilex.info and CISG.law. For the unilex.info, you can find both PICC and CISG. For the CISG.law, you can find CISG in many commentary, many articles, explanation for the article of CISG under CISG.law. Under the ICCWBO / Incoterms, you can find Incoterms. For uncitro.org, you can find many legal texts, many model laws of uncitro. For the law.cornell.edu, you can find the US law. For Legifrance, French law. For lawteacher.net, England law. For europa.eu, European law. Okay. Okay. Now for the Vietnamese website. Which website I can find the Vietnamese the normative legal system of Vietnam? Which one? The normative legal documents. Which website? For example, I want to find the Vietnamese Civil Code, the Vietnamese law on insurance, the business insurance, the Vietnamese law on credit institution. I can find it. Phạm Thị Thu Phương. I can find it. Have you ever access to this website? Have you ever access to these websites?
I have access your website and I can access the first two websites.
Okay. For the civil code and other normative legal system, normative legal documents, you can access egov.gov.vn and mog.gov.vn for normative legal documents. For na.gov, you can find commentaries article. For VIB Online, for example, you can find draft law and commentary. For sổ tay thẩm phán.gov, you can find publication of the decision, of the court decision. Publication of the court decision. Now we move to the next slide. This only reviews. Okay, you should imagine it only summary the sources of the contract law. Only review. You can find more. The example for domestic law, like under Chinese law, is contract law. Under French law is Napoleon Civil Code and Commercial Code. Under Vietnamese law, it's Commercial Code. It's not Commercial Code, it's Commercial Law. And the Civil Code of Vietnamese law. Under US law, we have both Common Law and UCC, it's Uniform Commercial Code. For international contract law, you can find many examples. For example, CISG is a Convention for International Settlement Goods, 1980. The principle of international commercial contract, or PICC. We have many versions for the PICC. The latest version is 2014. The principle of European contract law, the principle of European contract law. If CISG is a treaty, the CISG is a treaty. The PICC or PECN are not treaty. It is soft law. Okay, the PICC or PECN are soft law. They are soft law. The CISG is hard law. The domestic law is hard law. Like the Civil Code of Vietnam is hard law. And in terms of international contract law, it's not only for the CISG. You can find more treaty, like Hague Treaty. We have at least two Hague Treaty concerning to the international settlement good contract. At least two. And you have many regional treaty for the contract. Many regional treaty for the contract. For Africa, for South America, it's not only for European Union. The principle of European contract law is applied for European Union country, but you can find more example for the principle applied for African country or South American country. Okay, this thing is only example. You can find more. So we have many treaty as hard law. Okay, many principle of the contract law and soft law. We have both global treaty and regional treaty. Okay, let me repeat. Global treaty and regional treaty for international contract. CISG refer to global treaty. But we have the treaty for African country. It is regional treaty. Okay, the unilateral principle, PICC or PECN for European Union refer to the soft law. So in terms of international contract law, we apply both international and domestic law. It depends on your agreement. By putting article to agreement, you agree that which law apply. It may be international law, maybe domestic law, or maybe both. Or you can agree more. For example, you can agree customary law you can agree uses, you can agree the general principle of law. It's not only for international treaty or domestic law. You can agree more. Okay. So we have many sources of law. Many sources of law. And the most important is CISG. It's international contract treaty. You can agree apply domestic law. Okay, and many other examples for international law. Okay, that one is it's very important to understand. If you enter into the contract, you should understand the principle for entering. The principle for entering is this very, very important principle for any country today. And it is an example from the Vietnamese code. Okay, the most important is freedom. Freedom is very important, maybe the most important. The next is voluntarily, very important. Equality, very important. Goodwill, very important. Cooperation, honesty, very important. And good faith, very important. Very important. So freedom means if you enter into the contract, you freely to decide the party, you freely to decide the article, you freely to decide the time to conclude the contract, you freely to agree the law apply, you freely to decide what kind of jurisdiction you follow. Maybe you accept arbitration or litigation. Okay, you freely to decide for modification of the contract, for termination, for the way of termination of the contract, how many parties you want to sign, the time for conclusion, and many things. The freedom is very important. Without freedom, no contract. Okay, please keep in mind that no freedom, no contract. And the freedom is very important. It may be the most important. It may be the most important. The freedom may be referred to goodwill, because the freedom, the goodwill, the goodwill refers to you clearly understanding. You clearly understanding. Okay. In the case of you not fully understanding why you enter the contract, you're not fully understanding why you enter the contract, is a problem. Because the contract law says that if you enough capacity to sign, to agree, to enter the contract, okay, you can enter. In the case you lack capacity or no capacity, okay, no right to enter. You cannot enter the contract. Okay, if bad will. By goodwill, you fully understanding why you enter. Why we enter. And you understand that in this case, it is the force or not forced by your activity. So you understanding that you're freely to enter and not freely to enter. It's very important. Okay. Equality. Equality is also important. If enter the contract, you equal to other party. You equal to other party. If you enter into the transportation, for example, you freely to agree that which article you want to agree, which time the contract to be concluded. It's very important. And in the case of no equality, maybe no contract, maybe no contract. You can find some exception. For example, in the case of employment contract, okay, it a limited equality concern. For example, in terms of the equality, in terms of employment contract, the employer is very strong party. Okay, but employee is weak party. It may be limited equality concerning this one, and that's why the law must define the article to protect the weak party or the contract concerning to consumer. To the consumer is weak party, and the contract is the lack of information. Okay, lack of opportunity to fully understand the contract. For example, for insurance contract, okay, you are insuring. Okay, the insurance company is insurer. If you are insuring, is the lack of information, lack of opportunity to understand, to fully understand the contract, the nature of the contract. And that's why you are weak party, and the law should protect you. But the law also accept that in the case of a lack of equality, maybe accept, but it should be equality. Okay, you should equal to other. Voluntarily, in the case of the contract, it's very important that you voluntary to enter. Very important. In the case of no voluntary, no contract. Okay, if the person use a gun to force a party to sign the contract, no contract, because this one is a no voluntary. Okay, it's very important. So the principle of the contract means it is a very important compulsory article. It requests you to follow. No freedom, no contract, no voluntary, no contract. Okay, it's very important to understand the principle. So that's why if fully want to fully understand the principle, you should understand what is freedom. Okay, how about scope of freedom? If you want to enter the contract, okay, what is freedom to sign, freedom to change, freedom to modify, freedom to terminate the contract, freedom to bring the lawsuits to the court, arbitration, freedom to freely to choose the business forms of the contract, freely to carry business activity, freely to accept the way of transportation. Okay, so freedom is very important. No freedom, no contract. So understand the freedom, understand the equality, understand the good faith, understand the goodwill, or understand the voluntary, or even honesty. Very important to understand that which principle are very important for you, and you should understand before you sign contract. Before you sign contract, by understanding the principle, you understand your freedom, you understand your good faith right, you understand your honesty, you understand goodwill, you understand equality or non-equality, and you understand voluntary or non-voluntary. And that's why it's very important to understand before entering the contract. Okay. Any question? Any contract? Any question for freedom, good faith, equality, honesty, or maybe more? Any question? Any question? No question. Okay, Mr. Nguyễn Tuấn Anh.
Dạ, của em thầy.
Okay. Tell me the example from your opinion. Tell me example on your right concerning to your freedom.
So I think that when you are two party which are all entitled to have all the rights of Vietnamese citizen and have the rights to enter into a contract, and you both of you are voluntary, and you satisfy all the conditions below in the second in the second line, so that you have if and you guys are all willing to enter into a contract to make a business deal or something together, so you have the right to do it, and you have no like restrictions or limited or you're being limited of entering into a contract. I don't know, but you like freedom is what it mean, like you're free to do whatever you want with each other, but in like provided that is not violate the law or social ethics, I think.
Okay, because you say that it's not violate the law and social ethics, I have a question for you. Okay, now explain your freedom to your changing and education. Explain your freedom concerning to your education and training.
So one of the things that pop up in my mind is is that like not only me but any other students in Vietnam, they are free to enter any like to enter the to have the right to enter the education that any constitution or school or university in Vietnam provided that they satisfies all the entrance conditions to this constitution or school. But if they satisfies all those conditions, they are free to enter, and they also have the right to to study in those school and constitution, and I think that they have no restrictions of like which school you can go to or which school you cannot, or some kind of education that is only limited to the rich, or some kind of education that is only limited to some kind of people in Vietnam, but you all have equal freedom to do so. So I think that what freedom in education means for me.
Okay, it's very long explanation, but it's very good. But my question is focused on why the freedom is not contrary to the law and social ethics.
Not contrary to law and social ethics. And I have to give an example for that in the case of education, right?
Okay.
Okay, let me think about it. So is education also count like some kind of religious and tiếng Việt là gì tiếng Anh là gì không biết, nhưng mà nó giống như kiểu là truyền bá mê tín dị đoan, thì có được tính là education không ta?
Okay, continue.
Ồ, nhưng mà nó có được tính không ạ?
Okay, continue.
So I think that if the freedom does not apply when the constitution or the school they provide something like false information about the country, about the government, so you like like if you are if you like intentionally that is false, and you intentionally go to that school, sign up for that school, and to learn this information, and also you spread that to other people. So I think that's something that contradict the law, and that's violate the law. So it's not free, like you always have the freedom rights to do so.
Okay, now for education, you can freely to enter into the class. You have the right to freely to enter into the class.
Yes.
You have the right to freely to leave the class.
So is that a question for me? Like I have to answer yes or no, right?
Okay, can you leave the class?
Em không nghe rõ câu hỏi ạ.
Okay, you have the right to enter.
Yes.
The freely enter and not freely enter. Can you have the right to freely to leave the class? To quit the lesson?
I don't know. Like maybe not.
Or maybe not. Have an example.
If the class is like not what you registered for, so that you and also the school they prohibited those kind of action of student entering the class that they are not registered to, and also the professor they
Okay, now this one is it concerned to the law or social ethics or rules? Law or social ethics or rules?
if it's about law and social ethics, I think that if it's the class that you are given like by the university to
No, you do not understand my question. You not understand my question. You just set to the rules, okay? But the slide refer to the law and social ethics. The law and social ethics, okay?
Yes.
You just talk about the rules. So what difference between the law and social ethics and rules in terms of freedom?
I think that law and social ethics they are written in the civil code, and if you you violate the law, you have the government or some kind of sanction that punish you, and if you violate the rules, it's not the government, but it's the maybe someone or some organization who set out these rules. can, you know, some kind of suit you or punish you in, you know, according to the law. And so I think that okay, come back to the question, to the first question. I think that it's a yes. It's a yes.
Okay, you just said to the rules. Now tell me the example. For the rules, it's not law or not social ethics.
Oh, okay. So
not or not social ethics.
so yeah, we have a lot of rules around. Uh, like when I go to university, or you know, any kind of school, there are always, you know, schools rules for students, and also the teachers, right, and the lecturers. So I think that's the rules that we have to follow. Like in my in my university, like students have to wear, you know, proper kind of clothing when they are entering the class, or they're attending the class, and you know, some kind of thing like that. So that's the rules. That's not something that that is mentioned in the civic code, but it's the rules set out by the principal of the of my university, or someone else. I don't know, but if students, they are, you know, violating the rules, they maybe like some kind of I think punish, the very slight, they're gonna receive very, you know, light punishment from the university, but it's not something involved by the government, or yeah, bộ gì nhỉ? Bộ tư pháp hay gì đó.
Something you just said refer to internal rules by university. Can you see on the screen?
Dạ, em ơi.
Something you just said refer to internal rules by university.
Nghĩa là mấy cái freedom, voluntariness, cái thứ này nó có nó có apply vào cái rule ở university không anh thầy?
No, something you just said refer to internal rules by university. The right to enter into the lessons, the right to hear the lessons, is rules. Okay, but the law or social ethics refer to popular understanding, the popular intention, the popular acceptance by the community. The business ethics refer to the ethics accepted by business community. The social ethics refer to ethics accepted by the community, the social community as a whole. If the law created by state and accepted by the community, the social ethics refer to something accepted by the social community. It's not law. But because accepted by social community, it becomes compulsory. So that's why I asked you the question concerning the freedom to education, because the freedom for education is not only concerned to the law or social ethics, it's also referred to internal rules by university. And you should imagine what is law, what is social ethics compared to internal rule by university. And freedom in case of this one is not contrary to law and social ethics. Okay, and that's why you must look to the law, to article set by the law, and find and the scope of freedom, where and when and how the law accept your freedom concerning to the contract, and it depends to civil code and depend to separate as a law and separate regulation. The regulation refers to the government regulation. It may be set a scope or freedom. So that's all in terms of this one. It may be to distribute in the law, laws, and social ethics. Okay, the laws refer to both law, code, and regulation. But the law only refer to law and code. In the case I will set law, refer to the law like commercial law. And civil code, you set laws, refer to many things, including regulation. And social ethics, ethics accepted by community as a whole. That's why I asked you this question, for you to more understanding on what is scope of freedom, and why this one focus on not contrary to law and social ethics. Okay. Now
Yes.
we move to the next very important issues. Very important issue. How can you form the contract? Or maybe you said that formation. Formation. If you want to understand the contract, you should understand the status of the contract. Okay, for before contract, during contract, and after contract. Before contract, you have, how can you call before contract? Okay, before contract, we call that the pre-contract activities. Pre-contract activities. During contract, we have formation. Okay, can you see it? If you want to understand the contract, you should understand the status of the contract. And maybe you can divide the 3 stages of the contract: before contract, during contract, and after contract. So before contract, maybe you set pre-contract activities. Okay. You should give by that before contract mean no contract. No contract. But the question answer is, you have no contract. Before contract, you have no contract. But any liability happen, for pre-contract activity? Okay, it's very important question, must answer. Okay. The second is during contract. During contract, you must answer many questions. The first question is, contract is, you must answer for time for conclusion. When the contract start, when the contract starts. Okay, it's time for conclusion. And after you sign contract or time for conclusion, the contract to be concluded. Okay, maybe you want to change. Maybe you want to change the contract. This one refers to the condition for modification. Condition for modification. When you can modify the contract, okay, the law set the article for modification. And suppose that you modify, okay, you carry this article and you complete to carry this article. This one refer to termination, okay? And after termination, the contract to be liquidated. The liquidated means the contract go to an end. Okay, no more right, no more obligation. Okay, but the question is, after liquidation, it's the end of the contract? It is the end of the contract? Okay, it's a question. Before the contract, any liability happen, and after the contract, any liability still. Okay, we have many questions should be answered. We have liability for formation, liability for modification, liability for termination, liability for liquidation, and liability for the end of the contract, considering to what happened after the contract. Okay, do you understand what I said? Any question? Any question?
No. So are we going to talk about whether these have liabilities?
Why is it? It depends. It depends on state of the contract. It depends on the article you agree. It depends to the contract concluded or not concluded. It depends on the contract to be an end or still to carry. It depends on it is the complicated article. It depends on the type of contract. It depends on the specific event to enter. Specific events mean, for example, for war, for civil riot, for government decision, affect to the contract, or maybe you said intervene the contract. Okay, if this event intervene the contract and prevent a contract to continue, okay, something wrong happened. And in case something wrong happened, you must define that what happened. How about liability? Which party suffer liability, and what kind of liability you follow and suffer? So the question for liability depends on many things. Depends on the status of the contract, depends on the party, depends on the article, depends on the complicated the contract, depends on specific event enter or intervene. Okay. So many questions must answer before you decided which liability should be suffered by the party. Okay, now I tried only review for liability. In order to answer which liability involved to the contract, it is very complicated. But I want to show that we have many stages of the contract. At least you have before, during, and after. Before the contract, some kind of activity maybe happen before the contract. It's the same to enterprise. Do you remember enterprise? Do you remember pre-contract before business registration? Pre-contract signed before business registration. Okay, it may be the same, the pre-contract activity. Some kind of the contract activity of the pre-contract activity can be agreed. You may be accept for transportation before the contract concluded. You may be accept to transfer the goods before the contract concluded, maybe. And that's why maybe the answer to the question, we must answer the question, what kind of liability for pre-contract activity? Okay, and during the contract mean when the contract happened and what happened after the contract happened. The first question is, how about the formation? The formation define who entered. How about the time for conclusion? You must define the time for conclusion because it's very important to define that when the right and obligation of the party happen. Okay, when the right obligation of the party happen. And the right obligation happen means the liability arise. Liability arise. Okay, and after formation, I mean we have the contract. After formation, we have the contract. So if you have the contract, you owe the obligation to follow. Okay, you transfer the goods. Okay, you pay the money. So suppose that something wrong happen, or even you not enough capacity to carry. Okay, you want to change. Maybe you request the party as a party to change. If you ask the change to the contract, both parties must agree. If both parties must agree, it refers to modification. Okay, and in the case of modification happen, the next question is, how about liability if modified? And after modification completed, how about liability? And suppose that you carry in very good way for the contract, and the contract to be terminated. Okay, after the contract terminated, we have many ways to terminate the contract, but suppose that the contract terminated, the contract go to liquidated, or you say that liquidation. And the question is, okay, before liquidation and after liquidation, how about liability? How about liability? The liquidation refers to the end of the contract, but in fact, the contract to be go on end, maybe not. It depends. It depends. And that's why for sensitive contract, you should study many things. Okay, but under my presentation, I only focus on formation. Okay, rather than focus object. Okay, I only focus on formation. I'm not give you information or any lectures on pre-contract activities because this one is very complicated. Very complicated. Of course, I will show you some information concerning this one, but this one is very complicated. If you have any more questions, consider I am ready to answer. But I'm not focused on telling you or explaining to you what is a pre-contract activity. Okay, you are not expert. You are not professional. You are not legal student. You're not law student, and that's why I'm not ready to explain you a pre-contract activity because this one may be for law student, not for you. Okay, or legal profession. And that's why I'm focused on formation. Okay, the formation refers to offer and acceptance. Okay, negotiation and agreement. Okay, we focus on formation. For the formation, after formation, the contract concluded. The contract concluded, and that's why you should understand for time conclusion. The time for conclusion concerning this one and this one. When you change and give the offer accepted, okay, and when the agreement accepted by the party. Okay, so we have two times for conclusion. The time for changing offer accepted and the time for conclusion. Okay, and after the contract to be concluded, you know about the time for conclusion. The contract, the agreement becomes the contract, and you owe obligation to follow article. It means that it go to execution of the contract. The execution means I execute or carry or exercise the right obligation the contract under the article. Okay, transfer the goods, paying the money, open the account of the bank, accept and find the information from insurance company or something like that. Okay, and suppose that the contract to be completed. Okay, it go to liquidation. Okay, and in terms of my presentation, I'm focused on formation, conclusion, and termination. And for termination, it may be related to liquidation. It makes it it's less complicated. I focus on termination. So we have formation, conclusion, and termination. Okay, rather than discuss and explain also. Of course, if you have any question, I'm ready to answer. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, now we start with the formation agreement. The formation agreement. The formation agreement means it is a state in which you share, exchange, and transfer your idea. Okay, your idea may be compulsory. Okay, may be bound to you, or maybe not bound to you. So we must decide that in the case of it's bounding to you, it becomes offer. It bounding to other. Okay, the person met the idea that I want to sign contract, refer to the offerer. The person maybe accepted that. Okay, accepted your idea, refer to the offeree. Okay, the person met the idea and this idea become compulsory, means the person met the offerer. The offer becomes the offerer, and the person accept it, refer to the offeree. The person accept. Okay, and that's why you should understand what is offer and what is accepted and how can you change it. Okay, we start with the offer. We start with offer. Okay, we have many kind of definition. Okay, many kind of definition. Well, what is acceptance? What is offer? How can you conclude the contract? Okay, many kind of definition. You can find definition under the domestic law. Okay, under uses like PICC. Do you remember PICC? Okay, this one. The PICC refer to Principle of International Commercial Contract, and its latest version, 2014. Okay. You can use 2004 and 2004, 2010, or 2014. It depends. Okay, it's different version. You can use one of them. So the PICC stands for Principle of International Commercial Contract, or you can use the definition for the offer under convention, CISG. It also give you the definition on what is the offer. Okay, but now I use definition under the PICC. Of course, you can use under the CISG convention. Okay. Or you can use under the domestic law, like US law, under French law, like the definition for the offer under the French Commercial Code, okay, or under Vietnamese law, the definition for the offer under the Vietnamese Civil Code, okay, it depends. You can choose, okay, maybe one of them. I take some for example, okay, under the explanation from the expert of law, they explain that it's clear statement. Clear is very important. The clear. It's not clear, it's not offer. It's clear that you show very clearly your attention. I want to sign. How about the price? How about the time of conclusion? Okay, how can you change? Okay, how can you define the nature of the goods? Okay, or the nature of the services? You must define them by very clear. It's clear statement is very important to decide this is offer or non-offer, and it show your intention that it will be bound. You're ready to be bound by statement. So in the case of clear and ready to be bound, it makes the offer. So in the case of it's non-clear and not binding, it's not offer. It's not offer. Or under the explanation of US law, it's manifestation. Okay, show your willingness and legally bound. Okay, legally bound. So it should be manifestation. It should be willingness. You're ready to enter. Okay, you're ready to enter. You're freely and ready to enter, and you accept. Okay, legally bounded by certain terms. So it should be manifest, mean it is clear statement. It willingness means you're ready to enter at any time, and it legally bounded means you accepted to follow, and you accepted to pay the money, accepted to suffer liability. It legally bound. The law, okay, ready to apply. So depend to definition. Depend definition. We have many kinds of the offer. So in the case of you agree on the contract that the US law apply. The US law apply. This definition will explain that what is offer. Okay. In the case of you agree that PICC apply. PICC apply. Okay. This definition apply. This definition apply. Okay. If you agree PICC is a source of the contract, this one apply. So what is offer under PICC? The first is the sufficiently definite. The second is indicate intention to be bound. Okay, this definition focus on definite and intention. Definite and intention. This definition refer to willingness and legally bound. This definition refer to clear and bound. So it depends the definition set by the legal system or by the law. Okay, the Graphic law defines the definition of the article of the offer. If we agree the US law apply this one. If you agree the PICC, this one, or if you agree the Vietnamese law, okay, we have the separate article to explain that what is acceptance and what is the offer. I've not put the definition of the offer right here because I know that it's very too long, and that's why I've not put the article of the Vietnamese offer on the offer right here. So, what is offer depends to the Garbage law. Depends to Garbage law, and the Garbage law will define the criteria for something to be decided. This one is offer, clear or bound or willingness or legally bound or other. Right. Okay, now look at this one for example. In this case, the offer not specify all the terms, but the missing term can be taken for the previous contract. Okay, constitute a practice. What does it mean? The practice established in the party. What does it mean? Suppose that they sign 10 contract before they sign this contract. Okay, they already signed 10 contract, and for these 10 contract, they agree many terms, and these term decided very detailed on the time computer, the time of the price, the way of renew the contract, the definition for the terms of the contract, the way for transferring the technology for the computer. Suppose that they agree in detail before for 10 contracts. So it means that in the case of for this contract, they forgot to put the terms into. The question is, before they agree before, for many kind of the contract, so this one practice set a practice between the party. So even they miss the terms of the contract, okay, the practice still established before the party, and that's why even they not put it in the contract, okay, they have an offer. So this one refer to indicate the intention, okay, they intend to enter, the willingly intend to enter, okay, it's very important, okay, you accept before, okay, now you forgot, but you accept to enter, and the practice established before, so that's why it means that the terms, okay, set before and still continue, okay. So the offer is very important, very important. The person makes offer refer to the offerer. The person receive and accept it refer to offeree. Okay, if you make the intention, and this one ADEF, the definition of the offer like it becomes offer, and it becomes offer. Okay, it refer to legally bound. It bound to you. If you are the offerer, okay, you must follow the offer. It's very important. After you make the offer, okay, you send it to the person ready to accept it. If the person ready to accept it, it becomes offering, okay, and the offer become accepted, and the law also decided, okay, for what is accepted. Okay, you can find under the US law for definition of what is acceptance. You can find under the PICC You can find under CISG. You can find under French law, under the French commercial code, for what is accepted, what is offer. I only put the Vietnamese for example. What is accepted under Vietnamese law? The accepted means it will accept the whole content of the offer. If the offer give you the price, give you the party, give you the condition to enter, give you nature of the goods or services, okay, you owe the obligation to accept all of them. And if you accept all of them, okay, this one refer to accepted. You should keep by that this will refer to whole contents. Okay, you set 10 condition, 10 article. You must accept the 10 article. You accept 9 articles, okay, no accepted because you change. You accept 9, not 10, you change. If you change, okay, it's not accepted. It still become the offer. If the offer adapted the definition of the offer. If not, it's not offer. Imagine, okay, if you accept the 10 article, it is accepted. If you accept only 9, it's not article, it's not accepted, it becomes to offer. And if become to offer, its next is accepted. What does it mean? Okay, A sends the offer to B. Okay, if B accept, it is accepted. If B accept, it's accepted. Okay, if B not accept, in the case of B not accept, okay, it not accept, acceptance become the offer, and acceptance becomes offer mean the other party need the accepted to accept. Accept. In this case, okay, B becomes the offer. A become the offerer. For this one, A is offer, B is accepted. But suppose that B not accept, okay, B become the offerer, the person makes the offer, and A becomes the acceptant, the person accept the offer. Okay. So who is offerer? Who is offering? Okay, who makes the offer? Who accept the offer? Depends on if you accept or not. If you accept, it becomes the offering. If you not accept, it becomes the offerer. And the person makes the offer now becomes the offering. You must accept. Okay. The Vietnamese law says that if you accept whole contents of the offer, you become the offering. You make accepted. Okay. So if you make accepted, okay, you have the contract. If you have make accepted, you have the contract. The answer is maybe not. It depends. It depends what? It depends the requirements of the law. If the law says that if you accept, you have the contract, yes. If the law says that if you accept, but you need other requirements, you have no contract, okay, you need adapt other requirement to make the contract to be concluded. So if you make the offer, you accept, and you adapt some other requirements, you have agreement. And after you have agreement, okay, you owe the obligation to follow. So this one will refer to formation. Okay, you understand when you enter the contract, what kind of article you already agree, and how was the time of conclusion. When you have the contract, means you owe the obligation to follow, and that's why you need to understand and know about the time of conclusion. It's very important. Okay, any question? Any question? Any question?
No.
No? Okay. Okay. This is Vietnamese Civil Code 2015. Okay. And we show you was the article of the Vietnamese law for offering acceptance on the formation of the contract. Okay. The Vietnamese law set many articles for the contract, and for section 7 and subsection 1. The Vietnamese law set for the formation of the civil contract, how can you enter, and how was the time of conclusion. The time of conclusion, okay? This is the definition to what is offer. Okay, the Vietnamese law set is a clear expression. Okay, it's the same to US law. It's clear statement. Now it is clear expression. And to be bound. Okay, or binding and binding. And make a specific party. Okay, it should be specified. The party should be specified. Okay, if we not specify the party, no, it's not offered. So we have clear expression, binding, and specific party. Like Mr. A, Mr. B, or A company. Okay, it's specific party. So the Vietnamese law set time for offer, time for acceptance. Okay, time for the offer, time for the acceptance, and time for the contract. Do you understand? The time for the offer means if the offer has specified the time for reply. Okay, the offer entered into contract with the third person reply by the offeree. They set for the time conclusion. The Vietnamese law set the time in which the offer to be effective. The offer to be effective. We have many criteria to decide when and in which way the offer to become effective. So we have the time for offer, the time for acceptance, and the time for the contract. Okay, we not focus on time for the offer or time for the acceptance. We focus the time for the contract. Okay, this one. Under Article 400, they set a time when contracts are entered into on the time of conclusion. So when the time of conclusion, the first is when the offerer receives the acceptance, the reply acceptance. So what does it mean? Okay, I make the offer, send it to the offeree. The offeree makes the acceptance. Okay. Okay, let me take this one for more explanation by Okay, now look at this one. We have the time for the offer. Time for acceptance. The time for contract. Okay. Okay. The law set for time for offer when the offer to be effective. The time for acceptance when acceptance to be effective. And the time for contract when the contract to be effective. Okay. So the Vietnamese law. Vietnamese law says that the contract ends into time when the offer receives the reply accepting. Okay, you should give by that the offerer receives the reply accepting. What does it mean? It means that the person makes the offer, send it. Okay, this one is the offerer. The offerer send it. Okay, to the offeree. The offeree is the person accept. Okay, the person accept. Okay, and after you accept, you send back to the offer. Okay, and if the offer receives the reply accepted, okay, the contract to be concluded. So we have three times. We have time for the offer, time for acceptance, and time for the contract. Time for the offer means when the offer to be effective. The time for acceptance means when accepted to be effective. And the time for contract means when the contract to be effective. Okay. So when we have the contract, very simple. Okay. They receive the reply accepted. Receive the reply accepted. Okay. Okay, now we back to Article 400. Number 1 refer to the time for the contract when the offerer received the reply accepted. Okay, and they also explain other situation. For example, if you sign the contract in silent, or if you sign oral contract, or if you sign written contract, okay, the law explain when the contract to be concluded. For example, the time for written contract means the last party sign. Okay, we have two parties, for example. Okay, the first party sign. After the last party sign, or second party sign, the contract to be concluded. Okay, the Article 400 explain when the contract to be concluded. It's very important. And the Vietnamese law also explain under Article 407, explain invalid civil contract. Okay, the invalid civil contract means in the case of the provision, if you agree to civil contract, you want to make it to become transaction, but some of the article or one article is invalid. Okay, the invalid contract to be decided under Article 400 on 120 and 23 of the Civil Code. Okay, this one say that. Okay, now look at this one. The Vietnamese say that the civil transaction not satisfied. Okay, the condition under the 117 shall be invalid. The 117, this one, set the condition for the valid civil transaction. Okay, they have three conditions. The first is they have the capacity, voluntary, and not contrary to the law. Okay, the purpose and content of a transaction not contrary to the law. The participant or the party is entirely voluntary and have the full capacity if the law requires. So in the case of have lack capacity, okay, no transaction. No capacity, no transaction. Okay, lack of voluntary, no transaction. Okay, contrary to the law, no transaction. Contrary to social ethics, no transaction. Okay. So this very important. It's very important to imagine the time for conclusion. Okay. The contract to be concluded if the contract accepted follow to the article of the law, and the contract is valid if the contract follow to the requirement to decide that the valid contract, and if not, it's invalid contract. So the Vietnamese law or any other legal system decided the time for the offer, time for the acceptance, time for conclusion of the contract, the condition for the valid contract or transaction. Okay, how can you modify the contract? How can you terminate the contract? Okay, how can you agree? What kind of the article? How about the type contract? Okay, it's very important to define what is the contract in law. How about the offer? Who is offerer? Who is offeree? What is acceptance? Okay, how about time for offer, the time for acceptance, the time for conclusion, the type contract, or many things. Maybe the law, okay, refer to transfer title or transfer ownership. Okay, it means that if you agree to for the sale of good contract, you must agree that how much the time for transfer ownership for the goods. A is owner of the goods. A want to transfer the ownership to B. Okay, you must decide it under the contract, and the law may be decided when or the time for transferring. So the time for transferring is decided by the contract or decided by the law, or both. Apart from the time for conclusion, the time for the offer, and the time for acceptance, maybe you should know about the invitation to cheat. The invitation to cheat is very important. Okay, I think for the last information for this presentation, for invitation to cheat. Okay, the invitation to cheat refers to this one. This one refers to pre-contract activity. The pre-contract activity. Okay, the activity happened before the contract. Before the contract. Okay. The invitation to cheat refer to the pre-contract activity. It means that no contract. But the question is, any liability for pre-contract activity? in the world today, they said many way to deal with the pre-contract activity liability. It's very complicated and very difficult. But in order to understand the liability, you must understand the invitation to cheat first. Okay, many kind of action before the contract. The first is auction. The auction. What is auction? The auction refers to the accepted price. Okay, the accepted price. In the case of you ready to pay the price. Okay, who is price highest price? Maybe the person can be choose. Okay, but the person can be choose means the person can be decided to sign the contract. It means that after the auction completed, you sign the contract. Okay, that's why we said the auction is a pre-contract activities. It happened before the contract, not after. Display of goods. The display of goods refers to, for example, you go to you want to go shopping. Okay, you go to exhibition, you go to supermarket. Okay, you go to the shop. Okay, you see the goods on the shelf, for example. So display of goods means you see the good on the shelf with a certain price. Okay, but it not means that you can buy this one. Okay, or the owner of the supermarket want to sell this one. No, they want to sell a similar this one or this one. It's only invitation. Okay, it knows it shows that it's ready to sell this one, but not for exact this one on the shelf. Okay, the advertisement. The advertisement is maybe not the offer. It's not the offer. It's considered as an invitation to cheat. The advertisement is not offer because the advertisement is not clear statement, and the person make the advertisement is not ready to be bound by something they want to show on the advertisement. It's not the offer. For some legal system like US, like Australia, Singapore, or England, the offer may become in some way may become the unilateral offer. Maybe unilateral offer. Okay, mere statement of price. Mere statement of price refers to a kind of price. Okay, willing to sell. But maybe not amount to an offer. In this case, the price for the statement is minimum. It only shows that it's ready to sell, but not counted for the amount of the offer. Tender. The tender refers to the status in which you invited the person to involve. For example, you want to construct the building, and maybe 5 organization is enough to supply the services. Okay, they apply 5. In this case, you must decide which person to be the most suitable person for construct this building. And suppose that Mr. A or A company become the person you decided to supply services. After you decided this person become the person supply services, you sign the contract. It means that the tender, okay, process is decided before the contract. And after you complete the tender procedure, the contract to be continued. You sign the contract. So that's why the tender is before the contract or pre-contract activity. So you should keep in mind that the invitation to cheat, like auction, like display of goods, like advertisement, like my statement of price or tender, okay, all of them is not offer. And not offer means no contract. But the question is, how about the liability? For something happen in auction or display of good or advertisement or statement of price or tender or any other situation like it. Okay, I'm not want to focus right here because it's more complicated. Okay, if you had any more question, maybe you can ask me. Okay, now we back to this one for more information for you to understand and make the question. Okay, any question? Any question for before contract, pre-contract activities like settlement of the goods, or during the contract, the formation, time for offer, time for acceptance, time for conclusion. How about the question for termination of the contract? Okay, any question?
Vâng thầy, là time for conclusion thì có được gọi là thời gian hợp đồng được đưa vào hiệu lực không ạ?
Okay. Okay, now look at this one. Time for conclusion refers to you make the offer, you make the acceptance. Okay, and after you accept, and under Vietnamese law, after they receive the acceptance, the offerer receives the acceptance. Okay, the offer receives the acceptance. It is the time for contract or the time for conclusion. Okay, after they receive the reply of acceptance, okay, we have the contract. We have the contract mean, okay, from the time we have the contract, we owe the obligation. We owe the obligation. What does it mean? Owe the obligation mean you follow this article, okay? You must pay. If you owe the obligation to transfer the goods, you must transfer the goods. Okay, it's time for the contract. Or you say that it's a contract to be effective. Contract to be effective. Okay, the contract become effective. All the time for the contract mean it's the time for you or for the party carry the your obligation. Contract. Okay, you owe the obligation to follow. Can you imagine? Okay, let me show you. Okay. Before it is a charter for Vietnamese Security Corporation. Okay. The charter means a contract. Or I take This one for more, it's less complicated. Okay, this one. It's less complicated. Okay, now look at this one. Okay, it is the charter for Joint Stock Company. Okay, they agree for the terms of operation. Can you see it? What does it mean? The company term operation 50 years mean you only have the right to carry your activity for within 50 years. After 50 years, you have no more rights to carry. Okay, agree this one mean you owe the obligation to follow to the terms or limited terms in the 50 years. Okay. Or you say that it's shareholder rights. You say that you have the right to attending, speaking, and voting. It means that under the charter or under the contract, okay, you accept that you have the right to attend, the right to speak, and the right to vote. Or you say that the contract transaction between company and following objects should be approved by the board of management or the general meeting. The board of management of general meeting maybe have the power to accept if you sign the contract over 50%, over 30%, 35% of total share. So in the case you sign the contract, but over 35% of the total share, okay, you must send the approval to general meeting or the board of management to accept. And after acceptance or approved by this thing, you have the right to carry transaction. So the charter or contract mean you must follow to the article and follow to obligation under the contract. Okay, if the contract say that you must carry this thing, you must carry, you must pay the money, you must pay the money, you must transfer the goods, you must transfer the goods. So the time for conclusion means the time you must carry these things. Okay, the time in which you must follow the contract. Before the time conclusion, no obligation. Okay, after the time conclusion, you must follow the article. Okay. Any question? Any more question?
No.
No? Okay, only 1 minute. Let me repeat. Time for offer means the time for the offer to be effective. Time for acceptance. Okay, it's acceptance to be effective. And time for the contract. Okay, the contract to be effective. Okay, it's also the time for you to carry your obligation under the contract. Okay, paying the money, open account, selling the goods, okay, transferring the goods, supplying services, okay, buying the insurance fee, paying insurance fee, okay. So the time for your obligation, the time for you to follow this article is time for contract. The time for the contract means all of the party of the contract must follow the article. Very simple. Okay. Okay. Any more question? Any more question for before contract, during contract, or after contract? Linh Chi, are you still to connect? Still to connect? No? Okay. Any more question?
I think I haven't had any question yet.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Em hiện tại vẫn chưa có câu hỏi gì.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Okay. If you have no questions, please self-study at home. For presently under the Vietnamese law, the list of clauses. Okay, we have numbers like 73, 74. So list of clauses. If you have any question, please ask me. Okay, for the next presentation, we focus on the dispute settlement. For this one, we study the litigation and arbitration. Most of the time is spent on dispute settlement and arbitration. Okay. Okay, I think it's enough for today. For the next presentation, we will complete the dispute settlement. And for the fifth lesson, we spend the time to explain and try to deal with for the case study. The case study for the enterprise, case study for dispute settlement, and case study for contract. Okay, for the last lesson. Okay, I think it's enough for today. Okay, hope to see you.
Good to see you.
Any question?
No, I don't have any.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Em chào thầy ạ. See you.
Chào thầy ạ.
Let's see you again.